They wake before the alarm. The room is already in order. The first hour of their day is decided before the day begins, and they move through it without arguing with themselves about any of it. You watch this from the outside, and you feel one of two things: either quiet admiration or a low, familiar sense that you are failing at something this person solved a long time ago. But here is what almost nobody tells you about the extremely disciplined person. There are two of them. They look identical from the outside. Same early mornings, same clean room, same calm refusal to be pulled off course. And what is running underneath the surface could not be more different. One of them is free, the other one is trapped. And by the end of this video, you will be able to tell which is which, including in yourself. Let us start by killing the most popular idea about discipline, because it is wrong. Most people believe discipline is willpower, the clenched jaw, the heroic resistance of temptation through sheer force of character. The image of a person staring down the dessert, the snooze button, the easier option, and winning by gritting their teeth harder than everyone else. That model is not just incomplete, it actively misleads you, because willpower as a resource runs out. The psychologist Roy Baumeister spent years documenting how acts of self-control draw from a limited internal supply. Resist something in the morning, and you have less left to resist with at night. If discipline were truly built on willpower, the disciplined person would be exhausted by noon. They are not, so something else is going on. In 2005, two researchers at the University of Pennsylvania, Angela Duckworth and Martin Seligman, published one of the most cited findings in the entire psychology of achievement. They found that self-discipline predicted academic performance in students more powerfully than IQ. Not by a little, by roughly double. The disciplined students earned higher grades, scored higher on tests, and were more likely to get into selective programs than their equally intelligent but less disciplined peers. That part got reported everywhere, but the more important detail was hidden in how they measured it. They did not measure discipline as a dramatic moment of resistance. They measured it as a pattern, a steady orientation toward behavior, spread across an entire life. Eating, studying, managing impulses, tolerating the gap between effort now and reward later. Discipline, in the research, is not a performance, it is a pattern. And this leads to the finding that changes everything. When researchers like Wilhelm Hofmann studied people with the highest self-control, they expected to find people constantly fighting their urges. They found the opposite. Highly disciplined people reported spending less time resisting temptation, not more. Not because they have superhuman restraints, but because they rarely put themselves in the fight to begin with. This is the first real truth about the disciplined person. They are not winning a battle against temptation every hour. They have quietly arranged their life so the battle almost never starts. They do not resist junk food at midnight. They have a kitchen where the junk food is not there and the good option is already made. They do not resist skipping the gym. The gym happens before the part of the day that invents reasons. The discipline is real, but it lives in the design, not in the moment. The battle is won in the morning, not at midnight. In the planning, not in the willpower. The discipline is in the architecture, not the effort. So far, this all sounds inspiring. Build the system, let the system carry you, stop relying on motivation. And for one type of person, that is exactly what is happening. But the system can be built from two completely different places, and the place it was built from determines whether that system is a vehicle or a cage. The first version builds the structure from values, from a clear, honest sense of what they actually want and who they are trying to become. The psychologists Edmer Deci and Richard Ryan called this autonomous regulation, acting from an integrated sense of self. For this person, discipline is not suppression, it is expression. Doing the hard thing feels like being who they are. Skipping it is what feels wrong, not because of guilt, but because it is out of character with the life they are deliberately building. For this person, the structure is not a prison, it is a container. It is the thing that lets the work they care about happen without having to renegotiate it every single morning. When they deviate, they feel a mild discomfort, the small friction of acting against your own values, and then they return. Their discipline produces exactly what it looks like it produces, a life built carefully in the direction they actually chose.
Now here is a second version, and this is where the psychology gets uncomfortable. Researchers who study where extreme control comes from keep finding a specific pattern in the histories of rigidly structured people, a childhood that was unpredictable, a home where the adults were inconsistent, where stability and safety were not guaranteed from one day to the next. A child in that environment faces a problem with no good answer. They cannot control the adults, they cannot control the chaos, but there is one thing they sometimes can control: themselves, their room, their routine, the time they wake, the way their things are arranged, the one corner of the world that holds still when they hold it. There is a real mechanism underneath this. For the nervous system, predictability functions as a safety signal. When the outside world cannot be trusted to stay stable, the inside becomes the only place control is available. And the structures a child builds there are not chosen because they are useful. They are built because they are the only place the chaos can be held back. That child becomes an adult. The threat is long gone, but the structures do not leave. They they deepen, they harden into identity, and from the outside, they look exactly like the values-driven discipline. Same early mornings, same ordered environment, same apparent immunity to temptation, but the experience underneath is the opposite. The values-driven person finds the structure energizing. The fear-driven person finds it necessary. When the values person breaks routine, they feel mildly off. When the fear person breaks routine, they feel something closer to danger, because for them, the discipline was never about building a life. It was about managing a threat. And the threat is not out there. The threat is the question of who they are without the structure. What is left when the routine breaks? Whether they are okay when nothing is under control. Those questions were never answered. They were avoided by building the discipline, and they have been avoided ever since, with more and more precision, by a system refined over decades. So here is the test that separates the two more clearly than anything else. Take the disciplined person and give them 1 week of genuine, unstructured rest. No schedule, no goals, no system to maintain, just presence.
The values-driven person finds it strange at first, because anything unfamiliar is uncomfortable, but then something loosens. They discover the work will still be there when they return, that they exist and they are fine in the absence of the routine. The fear-driven person cannot reach that release. The empty week does not bring relief. It brings rising anxiety, a quiet sense that something is wrong, that has nothing to do with what is missing from the calendar, a faint feeling that without the structure, they are somehow disappearing, because for them, the structure is not something they do, it is what they are, and its absence does not feel like freedom, it feels like dissolution. This shows up in their relationships too. People close to them often describe a kind of remoteness, not coldness exactly, but a difficulty being spontaneously, fully present, because the next scheduled moment is already pulling at their attention. Real intimacy cannot be scheduled. It asks you to be surprised, interrupted, moved by something you did not plan, and a mind built entirely around control finds that genuinely hard to sit inside. The armor that protects them is the same armor that isolates them.
And here is the cruelest part, the trap. Because fear-driven discipline works. It produces real achievement, real results the world applauds. And every result loops back and confirms the belief that the structure is the answer, that more refinement will finally deliver the peace the last round of refinement did not. It is not a trap of failure. It is a trap of success that can never be questioned, because it keeps being rewarded. Self-determination research is clear on this. Motivation driven by fear and pressure can produce the exact same short-term results as motivation driven by genuine values. The difference does not show up in the output. It shows up over time, in well-being, in sustainability, in whether the person is building a life they want or maintaining a system they cannot afford to leave. So the real question is not whether you are disciplined. Plenty of people are. The real question is what your discipline is for. Discipline pointed at a life you genuinely chose is one of the most powerful forces a human being can carry. Discipline used as a substitute for that life is the most efficient way ever invented to spend your years without ever quite arriving in them. The system was always meant to be the vehicle, never the destination, and the person who confused the two is running a flawless engine in a perfectly maintained machine that has not actually moved in years. So be honest with yourself, just for a second. Your discipline, is it carrying you somewhere you actually want to go? Or is it just keeping the room clean so you never have to ask? If that question landed, you already know which version you are.